What's up, meta nerds? This video is all about the different kinds of shields in Star Wars. Most shields are some sort of deflector shield, which is broken down into both ray shields and particle shields. In general, an easy way to think about them is that a ray shield stops high energy attacks, and so is effective in stopping turbo lasers and blaster fire, and that particle shields would deflect physical objects, like ships, people, or space debris. The strength of a ray shield was determined by how much energy it could absorb, because even though they're called deflector shields, we don't see attacks bouncing off the surface, but it appears more like the energy is being diffused and absorbed by the shield, and we know that a ray shield's strength is determined by how much energy it can absorb before it gets burnt out or needs to be recharged. The smallest example of ray shielding is in personal deflector shields, but could be scaled up for battlefield use with larger deflector shield projectors, city-wide ray shielding, or even capital ships and planetary-size shielding, which often required multiple deflector shield projectors. The Gungan shield that we saw on Naboo is also classified as a ray shield, though some of its properties are very unique. It was most similar to the shield used by the droidekas, in that it could also stop solid objects, unless they were small enough and moving at a slow enough speed, like how we saw B-1 battle droids walk through the Gungan shields, and that if you could roll a droid popper slow enough, it could pass through the droideka's shield. It was ray shields that protected the Death Star's thermal exhaust port, which protected them from laser cannons and blaster fire, but this couldn't stop a solid projectile, like a proton torpedo, from getting through this shield. We also saw that ray shields could be used to keep people captive, and the explanation for this is that these were extremely powerful ray shield projectors, but because they were concentrated over this small area, the energy that made up this shield would vaporize somebody if they tried to step through it. There isn't too much information on particle shields, other than what I said about how they stop solid objects from passing through them, but it's important to note that planetary shields seem to be a combination of both particle shields and ray shields. This can be seen on Scarif and Starkiller Base, where ships would crash into the surface of Scarif's planetary shield, and that the only way to travel to and from this planet were through these orbital shield gates. The planetary shield that surrounded Starkiller Base made it so that the Millennium Falcon could not come out of hyperspace until it was past this shield and into the planet's atmosphere. And the only reason why the Death Star was able to fire on Scarif is because, like any deflector shield, it's only rated up to a certain energy, and this new super weapon fired more energy than these shields were ready to absorb. There are also a few other kinds of shields, like the magnetic shield, which was often used on starship hangar bays in order to prevent oxygen from flowing out into space. By creating a strong magnetic field, it could help protect ships from the effects of ion storms and even interstellar radiation. Thermal shields were installed in Admiral Trench's ship, the Invincible, and these could block both laser fire and projectile fire, even protecting them from proton torpedoes. These shields consumed more energy than your standard deflector shields, and took a considerable amount of time before they could be fully recharged. They also would not allow the ship to fire out through these shields, and so they had to be lowered if Admiral Trench wanted to fire on the enemy. Hydrostatic shields were used in a lot of Gungan tech, allowing solid objects to pass through while keeping water out. And then there were things like the magnetogravitic shield, which helped to keep small particles away from your ship while it was traveling through hyperspace, and could be used to manipulate asteroids and droids due to their high metal content. There was also something called a shift shield, which was only mentioned in the 1976 novelization of A New Hope, and was aboard the CR-90 Corvette the Tantive 4, but it sounds a lot like a particle shield, in that it would protect it from physical objects, like asteroids. Darth Vader told the Imperial Senate that its shift shields were overpowered when it passed through a meteoroid shower. But that's it for the different types of shields in Star Wars, and I will go over some of these inconsistencies, and some of the physics on how these shields could actually work, in a separate video. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want to check out our social media, or ways that you can help support this channel, be sure to check out the description down below. If you want to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications. But more important than all that, remember, it doesn't matter if your shields are up, if the plot is against you, and the Force will be with you, always.